Hi YouTube, here we are. It's Stratosphere Studio Night. It's Monday, the 3rd of November, which is kind of hard to believe, but it's always hard to believe. Hope everybody's doing well, and I hope everybody's doing well. Got a ton of stuff on the plate here as usual. So I just have something just kind of brief to show you. We'll get into our questions early tonight, I think. I've got to turn this bloody monetization off. Hang on. Very tedious. This is. Hey, everybody. It's good to see everybody, though. Okay. Hope everybody's been well. Come on. Here it is. Off. Save. Go. 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 Come on. It's one of those days where you should have stood in bed, you know. Coming up. Here we go. Okay. All right, so we're set up. So I've got no. Muted? I heard muted. I'm not. Please don't let me hear muted. Muted? No, we're good. Okay. Yeah, it's who's that? Crooks Bamboo Bazooka says daylight savings. Everybody's favorite legal standard. Pitch black at 5:30 p.m. and you know that. It's just nasty. I do have one thing to show before we move on. We'll get into the questions pretty quick tonight, I think. Like I said, showing a bunch of videos that I've been really proud of lately, and so I spent some time in my limited free time over the last couple of days working on something different, working on spaceship exteriors, the kind of things that I would be using probably Blender for, because the great mystery, I mean, I understand the technology and I understand why this is, but AI is so amazing at things like faces and interiors and the physics. It's just perfect. But CGI gives you precise control over objects, and AI doesn't know what those objects are. No matter how many times you adjust the prompt, it just doesn't understand. So normally I show you a list of like my favorite clips. Here's a list of the best of failures. I consider every one of these to be failures, but they're the best of the failures. Excuse me. I am going to. I gotta set up the other one. I don't want to do that. Hang on. I just realized I want to talk over these, so I have to reload something here. Hang on a minute. All right, give me 1 second, and I'll just take a second. I thought I could have just dragged and dropped this, but I realized I need to speak over this one. Hang on. So it's going to just show up for a second here in YouTube, and then I'm going to move it off. So hang on, everybody. Nobody panic. Just go back to the screen just for a second here, so I can start them together and comment over both of them at the same time. All right, so you're going to go there. Close. Turn off. Okay, does it turn on back at the beginning? Yes, okay, turn off. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. Hang on a second there, Twitch. So so these things, like I said, are failures, and okay, good. Now I got them queued up so I can talk over both of them. So I was playing with some, with some exteriors. Man, when I was doing the interiors of those cockpits, it was like once I dialed that still prompt in and the animation prompt, everything that was coming out of it was gold. It was just gold, and and now I'm just having so many problems on the exteriors. It doesn't know what 3D objects are. It doesn't know what people are. I was just playing around with stuff, way out there on Outpost on Sniffelheim, and and so I started with tilt rotors because if you got atmosphere, you might as well use it. It's a lot more efficient than just straight down thrust. So I started playing around with tilt rotors, and the tilt rotors actually came out pretty okay. Then I went to what I wanted was these landers that rotate their jets down, kind of like the Prometheus and Prometheus. There's a lot of those models out there, but there's just no way. And I just kept telling the prompt, I kept telling it, more thrust, rotate the engines. Just not going to happen. So I thought you might want to see what the process consists of, and the number of things I have to throw away to get to what I like. And I don't even know if I'm going to get to what I like on this. This may really require Blender. But if I do this real fast, I should be able to comment on both of them pretty nearly simultaneously. So everybody, hang on. There's two clips at the end that might be a little loud, but in any event. All right, ready? Okay, so here we go. Okay, so this one turned out pretty well, actually. That's pretty much an Osprey-looking thing. We got our alien planet there and so on. Here's another view. I like the snow coming off of the pad. I'm actually pretty happy with that shot. I think it's a good shot. I could live with that. It's a cool looking tilt rotor, but notice that the cloud of snow is coming out from underneath the vehicle instead of under the rotors. I told it to come out from under the rotors, but it didn't. This one is just I don't know. The angle's wrong. I obviously wanted the engines to rotate forward and to transition to forward flight. I mean, it's not terrible. This one, again, the cloud of loose snow comes out from under the fuselage instead of under the rotors. No matter how many times I tell it that, it won't do it. This one's okay. Like I said, the tilt rotors aren't too terribly bad. Now watch this. Okay, so whoa, we got too much back trim here, and the rocket exhaust not nearly thick enough, so we'll just do it again. I like the debris that comes off. Called this the pad wrecker, but a couple of versions of this, the flames are nice and orange, and I love the way it lights the bottom of the thing. That looks pretty cool. But and this is my favorite in terms of the way it looks. That looked pretty decent. Now this guy is like. I like the kind of, thing across the pad, but oops, we just turn the engines off and everything will be just fine. I like the color of the exhaust, but the exhaust on this one's not nearly thick enough. Let's see what we got next. And we're going backwards, of course. This guy is actually not too terribly bad. Again, cut the throttles in mid-takeoff and bad things are going to happen. So it understands the physics of it. Yo ho ho! Hey, this is the one I took off on. That's me on my first training flight in the tilt rotor. And this one actually looks pretty good at the start, but watch what happens when it takes off. The rocket exhausts are coming out of the landing gear, and they stop burning. No matter what I do, they just stop burning. Same thing here, where the jets look pretty cool. I really like the smoke on this one, and I like the angle over the head, but the rockets are not coming from where they're supposed to. This one again, we got the rocket powered landing gear and tractor landing gear on that thing. I don't know why. This one is not nearly enough thrust, but I do like the way the gear retracts a little bit, and it is suitably ugly. This one, again, those rear landing gears are, I don't know what they're for, but they weigh as much as, buses. But there's not enough. There's not enough rocket. Now I did landings where I didn't. I just said land. Yeah, this is the Pad Rucker 9000. Just look at the physics. Just look at the physics of how good the physics are. It's just freaking perfect. If that was landing on just ice field or something instead of on a pad, I'd be real happy. This is the closest I've gotten to the flames, and I like the way the physics. And this is monstrous. It's actually pretty cool. This last one. Anyway, that's that. So a lot of work left to do on that one. A lot of work left to do. I think one of the problems that that it has is that none of the renderings really showed rocket nozzles. I wanted jet turbines. I didn't want rockets. Rocket exhume plumes too thick, and I wanted like blue white kind of transparent thrust. So I think one of the problems is that none of those models rendered. I kept saying rocket nozzles pointing down. Nothing. But I think if I were to put nozzles on there that the AI could recognize, I think that would solve a lot of the problems because it just doesn't know the physics of it. Will they have chemtrails? Yes, they'll have ricin chemtrails, and there's no point in having flying vehicles if we can't chemtrail everybody. But the physics are good, and the and the and I like all of the smoke effects and the fire effects. Just very difficult to use. Air Techie wants to know: is there enough oxygen for jets on that world? I think there probably is. It's a good question, actually. In any event, you have to go through a lot of the, and I showed you maybe a quarter of all the ones that I did, and I'll get it there. I think and the software will get there too. So, there you go. Mesh AI is mainly known for generating 3D models of prompts, but it can also generate video using a supplied 3D model. Is that true? Because that's kind of what I'm looking for here. Check it now real quick. I know it can create models off of images. Image to 3D, text to 3D, AI texturing. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Upload 3D models and transform your words or images into textures. That could be cool. That's really impressive, actually. And it's native in Blender, Unity, but not Unreal. I'm going to be using Blender, I think. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you very much for that. Terrific. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to just jump into the questions here. I know it might be a really short show tonight, but I didn't want to cancel it. And I thought I'd just, get it done and see what happens. Still no word back on the pitch, but that's not unusual. I've been in contact with this gentleman for a while, and he likes to let things sit. I think he wants to know if I'm like, like overeager. I mean, I contacted the first time I contacted him, and I didn't hear back from him for 10 days. I thought for sure he just ignored me, but and plus those people are busy. All right, so what we got here? Number 4. Okay, Thank you, Marisha, for curating the questions here. Keep calling him, show him you're hungry. I'm not going to show him I'm desperate. I will call him if I don't hear from him from the end of this week. He knows I'm hungry. Well, it took 6 or 7 emails just to get the invitation to go down there, which he invited me to. So, in any event. All right, we got an Eric Blake, we got an Ian Nolan, we got a Marusha Dark, got a Capital G Geek, got a Roadrunner, got another Eric Blake, Braden Higby, Roadrider. That's quite a few. All right, let's knock them down. Eric Blake, second time and counting. However, the other question is much more important, so if it's just got to be one. I think I'm going to skip this one, Eric, because I kind of think we talked about this before. I don't see a lot here that I didn't talk about last time when it came to Satanic Panic. So we'll get the other one. Ian Nolan. Bill, it's odd topic, so I'm going to mention it. You can read this quietly or out loud. There's no question. It seems like Charlie Kirk was the unity in the unity coalition that was built, and cancel culture is just as ugly on the right as it is on the left. We're 3 weeks into demands that Tucker Carlson be canceled because of the leaks of the Young Republicans chat. Yes, there's an atmosphere of anti-Israel derangement in the air, but it's also just as deranged. I've seen it so many claim to believe that Tucker nodding, perhaps an agreement, perhaps just an acknowledgement, to a guest who was quoting Patton that the Soviets were so evil that arguably we should have teamed up with the Nazis to take them down means that Tucker loves Hitler. I don't know what Tucker actually believes, but I do know this rush of cancel culture on the right is ugly and dishonest, and I hope you stay out of it. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm glad you asked. Well, first of all, somebody quoting Stalin, quoting Patton as saying, we should have signed up the Nazis to finish the Soviets. That is a statement in context in terms of when the statement was made, which is immediately, and I mean like the days after World War II. That's something different than having somebody like Nick Fuentes, who talks about admiring Hitler. But more than anything, Nick Fuentes on that interview said, "Hey, today's Stalin's birthday." Stalin's birthday? How did you know that? Did you? Oh, I'm a big fan. Now, I understand that a lot of what Nick does is bombast, but I just have to speak for myself here, Ian. No one says that to me in an interview, and I just walk past it, And when you're I'm not walking on eggshells with this in terms of like hurting people's feelings. I just want to be clear about it. Here's what I think happened. This is my honest take on it. TPUSA is a $70 million organization, and wields incredible power, political power. I talked to a few people who are in the know, and I wasn't in the know. I don't know nothing. I see nothing. I know nothing. But I did not realize the kind of raw political power that Charlie Kirk had in terms of things like, apparently when the Greenland thing was going on really early in the administration, apparently Trump sent his son and Charlie. And Charlie's had, the president's ear and has recommended a lot of people for cabinet positions and so on. So Charlie was an extremely influential guy. But TPUSA, by far the biggest player in the hard power arena. And by hard power, I mean the ability to influence politics as opposed to influencing the culture. So my perception is that once Jeremy was basically forced out of Daily Wire, that Daily Wire has lost its way. I don't see anything in Daily Wire that is forward-looking or anything like that, and I don't know what TPUSA is going to do without Charlie, because both of those organizations were very, very much the product of the people that created them. And and so what I think we've been seeing since Charlie was assassinated, um, uh, you don't you don't um, I'm trying to figure out how to put this. What I think since Charlie's assassination, we've seen Candace, without question, Candace, and and to some degree Tucker, and then I think kind of like the dark horses Fuentes. I think they're all kind of after um, uh, TPUSA. I think it's I think it's just the goal. Um, so uh, yeah, that's speculation on my part about Jeremy. I just don't think that you walk away from. I've never asked him about it. He's never told me about it, but I don't think you walk away from a CEO position. So um, I mean that seemed obvious to me when it happened. Um, that is not an inside story and it's not a leak. I just I just don't see how you walk away from being the president and CEO and just basically take a a back seat to yeah, I'm just gonna stay in the back room and work on some content in an editing bay. So so what I there's no question in my mind at all, none, that that Candace Owens is gunning for TPUSA, and obviously it was handed over to Erica. So I've watched Candace do her best to discredit Erica. I've I've watched her discredit the entire um, TPUSA organization, including she's accused their security staff of being in on it, and new accusations, on a daily basis. TPUSA hasn't replied. I suspect they might be preparing a defamation suit. That wouldn't surprise me. But clear that she's gunning for it. Tucker had been before Charlie died had been been asked to be the featured speaker at a TPUSA event. Um, I don't think he's unaware of the possibilities of leading that movement. And then you've got Fuentes, um, who yeah, I'm with you on that, Eric. On Crowder calling out Candace, and then you've got Fuentes who fancies himself, and who in fact we don't know how significant this is yet, but is the leader of a movement. Fuentes' importance is going to depend on just how big the so-called Groyper movement really is. There's no question that it's big enough to disrupt events. And Nick has on air threatened to disrupt events for JD Vance or whatever if they don't take a knee to Nick Fuentes, which is all of this is just repugnant and disgusting and narcissistic and selfish. I don't think that there's certainly enough of these Fuentes Groypers to disrupt events. The question is, are there enough of them to swing a state? And I suspect the answer to that is definitely not. Richard Dark says, I think Fuentes' main issue is applying population level trends to individuals. He does this with Muslims, Jews, blacks, women. Greater nuance would correct most of his issues. Well, I don't know how you do greater nuance on when we take power, all the Jews are going to be killed, because I saw him say that. I saw him say a bunch of things that don't seem to require greater nuance to me. I think Fuentes is a spoiler. I think he's I really think he's a Fuentes is a strange guy. To be honest with you, I've heard of him for a long time. I hadn't seen him until after. I didn't even know what he looked like until until after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I've seen a bit of him since then. He's got a kind of a Jack Benny flamboyance to him that is not the. I don't have a lot more volume to give. I don't think, Donna. You try that. I don't think he's got a lot of substance, and I don't think he's got a lot of. Well, there's something wrong with Nick Fuentes, and something wrong besides just his outrageous political positions. There's something really missing with Fuentes. He he just looks like and reminds me just like kind of a lost. He's like a lost child, and I'm not trying to cut him any slack for that, but everything he does is just, who he reminds me of. He reminds me of the guy whose name I can't remember. Hang on, I've got to find it. This is not going to make him happy. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'll tell you who reminds me. He actually reminds me of Jack Doherty, and a lot of you are not going to know who Jack Doherty is, but some of you will. And I'm curious if you are one of the people who knows who Jack Doherty is, whether or not you get that same vibe. Jack Doherty is a YouTube douchebag, basically, who made his name by bumping into people just on the sidewalk. He had this enormous security guard, and he would just walk and bump into people, and people would turn on him, and he'd say, "What are you going to do? He's got my big security guard there." And he did these outrageous, stupid things, and some children liked him. He made a lot of money on YouTube, or at least he appeared to. He's pretty much crashed out now, but he has that same kind of childishness, this kind of, something that's not formed, something that's just arrested development at some fundamental age. He has rhetorical talent. There's no question about that. He's got a good look, and he knows which buttons to push. And what he's doing is he's like one of these. What would it be in nature? Something like a. He's like a mimic. He understands. He understands what Gen Z men have been through. He understands what they're sick of, and he understands what they need. And he's supplying. I've got it. Nick Fuentes is the methadone of conservative commentary. That's what he is. He's the methadone. For those of you unfamiliar with methadone, methadone is an opiate that is used to treat heroin addicts. It doesn't get you high. It just apparently keeps you from going through withdrawals, and so it's just a plain bummer in both regards. You don't get the rush of a high, and at the same time, you don't. You're not free of this stuff. And Infidel 42 says it keeps you addicted longer too. Methadone maintenance is not a big success in terms of that. Roadrunner says he's Harry Sisson's annoying brother. He reminds me of Harry Sissons, actually. Now what Marusha said is is true, although there's things that Nick Fuentes believes in that are they're just I just find them irredeemable. Um, but but a lot but what Fuentes is doing is he's putting in enough genuine, legitimate grievances to make people think that he's telling the truth about everything. Um, there is black fatigue. People have had enough of this, out of control behavior, this destruction of stores, people throwing, freaking baskets of fries at McDonald's. That's a real thing. Um, we've certainly had too much of the trans movement and being told all of this, and the feminist movement and the girl boss movement and all of this stuff, and all of it has a basis in reality that needs to be talked about. All of it is legitimate, but my thoughts were pretty much the same as Marusha's, except that there are many things that I find just is not. It's not a question of, hey, he's a little bit further out on the spectrum. This is just uh, this is just plain wrong. First of all, there is nothing, and not that I'm aware of, there is nothing that this guy talks about that is conservative. He doesn't believe in capitalism, doesn't believe in the free market, is a big fan of Stalin, fan of Hitler, really has very totalitarian views, and he talks about what we're going to do when we get into power and all the people we're going to go after and all the rest of it. He's he's well, he's the loudest pundit in the conservative spectrum, but there's nothing conservative about him. I have yet to see anything about him that is actually conservative. I was talking earlier when we were talking about this kind of fallout before, um, and that is, the three things that I thought we should stand for were truth, reason, and sanity. And I changed that. I gave that a lot of thought. I moved it up to four, and I thought, no, three's a nice round number. I think the three things that we should be aiming for are truth, reason, and decency. I almost said compassion, but compassion is a problem. Compassion has gotten us into a whole lot of trouble. Decency is a better word. I think truth, reason, and decency would be my motto, and I've given this a lot of thought. You can't admire Hitler or Stalin and still have reason, because if you're dedicated to truth, you know the truth about Stalin, and there's no reason in the idea that I'm a conservative Stalinist. Um, and the compassion thing is a dangerous hook, but decency isn't. The reason I like truth, reason, and decency is because you can and we are and we have to continue to do things that are difficult and unpleasant, and in many cases actually are cruel. They're cruel not because we're dealing with them cruelly, they're cruel because they were allowed to be cruel. It's cruel to take people who've been living in this country for 25 or 30 years and export them back to their country of origin. It's cruel, but it's necessary. Now, I'll elaborate on this in just a minute. It's cruel, but it's necessary. But if you're going to do it, and you have to, then you have to do it with decency. You have to have fundamental decency. You have to have the ability to not be brutal about it. You have to have the decency to understand that this is painful and in many cases unfair. My position on this immigration thing and the great deportation is this. First of all, anybody who came over in the last 4 years, especially all of the single military-aged men, goodbye. Just that simple. Goodbye. I think that it would behoove us as a country, and be the decent thing to do and the smart thing to do, for us to set up a guest worker program. There are people who want to come to America and work, and they send most of their money back home. I admire those people. I admire this is the decency part. I admire people from, let's say, from Mexico, who go out and work, 18 hours a day in the fields or doing whatever, and who, triple hot bunk an apartment room and send almost all their money back to their families in Mexico. I admire that very, very much. That's my decency coming through. Doesn't mean I think it's a good thing. Doesn't mean I think it needs to continue. But I admire it. I know how you cannot admire somebody who's got that kind of commitment to their family. And I think there's a place for people who want to work in America but don't really want to become Americans. I think a guest worker program that was regulated and so on would be great, especially if it was set up in such a way that it didn't depress wages, and if it was used to fill jobs that are difficult to fill. But for the people who have been here for 25 or 30 years and who feel like Americans and who want to be Americans, then I think those people should be allowed to stay with the understanding that they go to the back of the line in the immigration thing, that they pay the immigration fees and they pass the immigration tests, and then they take an oath and they become Americans. My wife is as American as I am. She's as American as you are, because she earned it. She spent 7 years working towards that, the two of us together. But my main criterion is, do these people want to be Americans? If they want to be Americans, then they can get in the back of the line. If they're just here for the benefits, then sayonara, baby. Everybody has to contribute, man. Everybody has to contribute, and when you get to the contribution thing, then you're looking at, I don't think the immigrants or the illegal immigrants here are anything like the main cause of the amount of money we spend giving free money to people. I think that money mostly goes to Americans who just don't want to work and haven't wanted to work for 3 years. So all of this stuff has to be reformed, and it's hard. And I think you should feel regret at watching people having to go through this process. But regret is not the same thing as stopping the process. It's just, a decent person should be upset that this has to happen this way. Dr. Dre says he explained that he liked Stalin because he was a nobody, wasn't even Russian but Georgian, yet became the most powerful and feared Russian ruler in history. He also became the second biggest mass murderer in history. And yeah, I saw the note, Marisha. And I'm pretty sure, because Nick loves to wrap himself in the Shroud of Turin, off the top of my head, I cannot think of any individual in history who's killed more Christians than Joseph Stalin. In fact, I'm quite positive that no one has killed more Christians than Joseph Stalin. So, as far as him sitting there on the golden throne deciding who's Christian enough and who's not to stay in America, I find that to be a little bit of a problem. Now, Genghis Khan, Roadrunner, couldn't have dealt with these numbers. The population wasn't this big. I mean, I could easily put 20 million and probably more like 30 or 40 million on Joseph Stalin's plate right now. So, there it is, and you've got these three people who I think are just gunning for the levers of TPUSA. I think they're gunning for the money, and I think they're gunning for the influence. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean taking over TPUSA. I think, for example, I don't think Fuentes wants to take over TPUSA. I think Fuentes wants to destroy TPUSA so that the people in TPUSA will come over to him, to his America First movement. I think Candace clearly just wants, and not only wants, is trying to incite so much suspicion and doubt and hatred towards the existing TPUSA structure that she's trying to foment a revolution. That she's trying to get, I think, become the head of TPUSA by proclamation, because she's the only person that genuinely cares about Charlie's death, cares enough to look into it. And by the way, Charlie told her in a dream that he wanted her to take over. And then there's Tucker, who somebody said earlier, I don't think Tucker meant that. I don't think Tucker believed it. Nobody knows what Tucker believes. I mean, Dinesh D'Souza pointed this out beautifully. Tucker brings in people to say things that he either feels or is inclined toward, and then they say the things that he can't say on his show to him, and he gets to say, well, there's a point there, or I agree with this, or I don't know about that, or, well, you know. And he's basically found a way to sock puppet his ideas without him actually coming out and saying, you know, this is what he believes. And the evidence that he got, you know, friendly with Cutter is strong. So, you know, it's so heartbreaking, because we really reached the point where we actually had, and we still have, a giant big win. I agree with I would agree with you in terms of the overall question. You know, I am a gigantic believer in the 11th commandment. Really big believer in the 11th commandment. Which, if you're not familiar with Ronald Reagan, the 11th commandment is, thou shalt not speak ill of fellow Republicans or conservatives, or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, there are some things that you do have to just, you know, you don't get to duck. This Jew hatred is ugly and wrong. Now let me immediately come back and tell you how a person with, you know, integrity and or who at least tries to maintain integrity, intellectual integrity, and personal integrity. So the second I come out and say that, let me say this: there is absolutely true that that the Israeli lobby has made it radioactive to criticize the state of Israel, and I am on the side of Israel, but that doesn't mean not only that you can't criticize Israel. I think there's a lot about Israel to criticize. I think there's a lot about American Jews to criticize in terms of the way that the bulk of them votes. But the main problem with all three of these people is that they are attributing to the whole characteristics of individuals. You know, these people that they say, these Jewish donors that influenced, you know, TPUSA, well, they're not Jewish donors, they're American donors, and they are in several of these cases, because I know quite a few of these people, they have put their money up and started things like TPUSA and Veritas and all of these other things when other people didn't put up their money, you know? So it is inaccurate. It's inaccurate to say that that these are Jewish donors. I mean, you can say that George Soros is a Jewish donor, and he is, but the guys that back these other things are Jewish donors, and they're as patriotic as they get. So you get the idea, right? It's a question of which ones. Who are you talking about? And the worst of all this is that it's completely taken our focus off of the left, and those are the people who we should be fighting against, because it's the left-wing Jewish donors that are causing these problems. It's the left-wing trans people that are causing these problems. It's the left wing. The biggest threat to this republic, guys, and I don't think there's any question about this at all. The single greatest threat to this republic is white American liberal women. That is the voting bloc that has trashed this country for 100 years. Anyway, so it's just plain wrong, and it needs to be called out. Andrew DeLay says George Soros is about as Jewish as a ham and cheese sandwich with a side of shrimp cocktail. Yes, but you see what I'm saying, right? These are labels that people are attaching in order to generate an emotional response, and you just can't sit there and let that happen. You can't sit there and let it happen, you know? When I talk about ghetto fatigue or black fatigue, it's a real thing. I mean, it's a real thing. But so is Thomas Sowell, and so is Clarence Thomas, and so are Zoe Rachel and the Hodgkins twins and all of them. It's a mistake. It's a critical mistake, and it is a mistake that will bring you and this whole idea down if it's not corrected. We are the individualists, and so if we're going to attack people for their behaviors or for their anti-Americanism or for their destructive tendencies or for whatever they say, we need to be doing it as individuals and not attaching group labels to them, because that's the end of Make America Great Again, and it's also the end of the country as we understand it. E pluribus unum I believe in. The part that's been subverted is the unum part. It's the Democrats who have told people, invited in people from countries that have nothing to do with us, that have no cultural background with us whatsoever, invited them in by the boatload, dumped them into areas, allowed them to not assimilate. This business in Dearborn, Michigan, I'm sorry, man, no. You do not get to blast the call to prayer at 5 o'clock in the morning throughout the entire town. I'm sorry, you don't. You can do it on headphones if you want to, but this is not an Islamic nation. And when you allow this to continue, then it just gets worse and worse and worse. So Minneapolis is going to get a Muslim mayor. It looks like New York, although there's been some reversals, is going to get a Muslim mayor. I say great. This is what it takes, you know. It took Joe Biden to get us Trump back. It took Comey to get us Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, especially Bongino. And, you know, if you don't... I don't mind that Dearborn is 60% Muslim. I mind that the 60% Muslims in Dearborn are marching in the streets demanding that we all live the way they want to live, when the reason they're supposed to be here is to live the way that we live. So if we don't do something about this, then we're going to turn into London and Paris. And there needs to be some pushback on this. And the first pushback ought to come from, well, it needs to come from the state level, but we know that's not going to happen in Minnesota, so we'll see. Alan Matthews in the YouTube stream has it exactly right. He says Sharia law isn't compatible with the U.S. Constitution. To be honest with you, Islam is not only not compatible with the United States Constitution, Islam is the only religion in the world that is antithetical to the Constitution. Hindus can live here without violating tenets of Hinduism, and so can Jews, and so can Confucians and animists and pagans and all the rest. But when you ask a Muslim, is it okay to draw a cartoon about the Prophet Muhammad? Then the answer is either yes or no. And if their answer is no, then that is antithetical to the Constitution of the United States, and you don't belong here. We're not here to adapt to you, and we're not here to give up the freedoms that we fought so hard for, including freedom to practice your own religion, if your religion is determined to violate our rights, especially our First Amendment rights. It's just simple. It's that simple. It's if you want to be an American Muslim, you need to understand that you live in a country where people can post editorial cartoons about the Prophet, and either you're okay with that or you're in the wrong country. So there you go. And just the last thing on this subject, I heard Tucker talking about, Qatar or Riyadh. Oh, you don't have to lock your keys up at night there, and there's essentially zero rape, and yeah, that's right, Tucker. It's absolutely true. In other words, it's identical to small town America, except without the freedom. So when you hear somebody making apologetics for countries that are run under Islamic law because of law and order, that's not a conservative. Okay, it's not a conservative. You'd never hear me talking about Riyadh as a model country because of its law and order. I would say, if I wanted to talk about law and order, I would talk about oh, come on. Plano. Or Mayberry or something. You get the idea. All right, moving on. But Ian, look, I agree with you, man. This fight is not pretty, and I'm not trying to cancel Tucker. I'm just saying that some of the things that he says need to be stood up to, and I'm a conservative because I'm trying to conserve classical liberalism, private property, freedom of speech, all of those things. Okay, and I suspect that this will wear off. I get the sense already that it's wearing off as the passage of time goes on with Charlie, and Candace gets further and further out on a limb and beclowns herself more and more. You can't keep this temperature up all the time. So we'll see. We'll see. I'd love to get Gen Z on the side of goodness and righteousness, but they'd have to quit being groypers first, because that's not manhood, and that's not masculinity. It's not certainly not conservative. It's just plain Andrew Tate kind of materialistic, swaggering, macho braggadocio, which is the opposite. If you want to see what manhood is, go rent High Noon. Or Indiana Jones, or Raiders of the Lost Ark. I didn't mean to say Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, because the actual movie's called Raiders of the Lost Ark. You should go watch that movie. It's a good example of truth, reason, and decency. A little courage doesn't hurt either. Marusha Dark, topic, when the novelty wears off. Scott Adams used to say, quoting his mother, that you can get used to saying anything if you do it long enough, including hanging. I'm sorry, you can get used to anything if you do it long enough, including hanging. The other day I found myself thinking about the Jurassic Park movies. In the first film, everyone's jaws hit the floor, in both in-world and in the audience, at the sight of real dinosaurs come to life. Fast forward to the later movies, and one of the main points is how people have become completely bored with them, particularly young kids who'd always grown up in a world with dinosaurs and never knew anything else. Imagine being bored of frickin' dinosaurs. Yeah, it's almost like being bored of going to the moon. Yet even the movies themselves have gotten kind of boring as well. Makes me wonder if and when humanity might eventually get bored with things like AI, robots, space travel, basically anything we currently think of as novel, rare, or cool. I remember the entire aesthetic of the 90s was about maximal coolness. Whatever happened to that? I recall when NASA landed a probe on an asteroid, an objectively monumental achievement, and how I myself sort of felt meh about it. I know even you've expressed a sort of ennui towards SpaceX launches of late as they become more commonplace. They say familiarity breeds contempt, and many couples fall out of love after the honeymoon's over. The same is probably true of other things as well. So is this all just sort of sad but inevitable? What are your thoughts? My very first thought is that after a couple nights ago, I believe that that Halloween is a dying holiday. I hope it's different in homeland America, but it's certainly dying out here. And I've lived in the same neighborhood for 9 Halloweens now, and it's just the pandemic did enormous damage, but it just seems to be dying, and that just seems to be the houses in my neighborhood used to be single story houses with big backyards, but now they're McMansions that practically touch each other, and Natasha says that's the way things are going. I'd love to be wrong about Halloween. I'd love to be wrong about it. I hope I am wrong about it. But things, I bring it up because the culture changes and things, the river changes its course over time. I was having a conversation with Jeremy not too long ago. He was out to visit for a couple days. We were talking about that exact same thing about the Jurassic Park movies. He said, and he's absolutely right, no one will ever, and you had to be old enough to have seen Jurassic Park in a movie theater and have it be your first experience with CG dinosaurs. If Jurassic Park 1 wasn't your first experience, then it's all muddied up. But if it was your first experience, 1993, I want to say, if you went to see Jurassic Park in a movie theater, and that moment comes where he turns around and he just looks and he grabs her head and turns around and looks slack-jawed, and you look up and you see that Brachiosaurus, that will never happen again. It can never happen again. There is no CG effect. There's nothing ever that will match that moment. That, I think Brontosaurus is an obsolete term. I think Brachiosaurus has been in use now for 40 years or so. But yes, that will never, ever happen again. And if you were in a movie theater to see that happen, you experienced absolute magic, because that knocked people out of their chairs. And by the way, that particular passage of music, I think, is the most effective moment in John Williams' career. I think that da 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 da, it just knocked you down. It was absolutely mind-boggling, and they will never match it. It's time to put these Jurassic Park movies away, and they will never ever match it. And so they keep trying to outdo it, but you can't outdo it. You can sometimes reimagine it. What I mean by that is, instead of trying to top it, instead of trying to top the dinosaurs by having, velociraptors, now we've got super velociraptors, now we've invented a new dinosaur, here's a king of the dinosaurs that beat Jurassic. Instead of doing all that, I think the way you go is to get it small. And what I mean by that is this. I've seen the AT-ATs in Star Wars many times, right? Once you've seen them, and they were real impressive the first time. I always thought they were ridiculously high center of gravity, but in any event, there they are. But there was a moment, and I think it was in Rogue One, where they're coming ashore, and the foot of one just comes down in the jungle and just misses you, right? Just missed the guy, and that was like, oh, that was a cool take on the AT-AT. But you'll never have that experience again. I don't think you will ever have the same experience that you had in the Fellowship of the Ring. I mean, in the space of 10 or 15 minutes, you go from being inside the mines of Moria. When they show that again, the music, so they're going through the tunnels and around the back and all the rest of it, and then they finally get into this open chamber, and Gandalf's got his light, and there's that one moment when they just open up, and you realize just the vault and the rows and rows and rows and rows of columns, and the music was so perfect. The music was so perfect, and and the iconography of the dwarfs was so clear, and the angular kind of Art Deco kind of look. And then 15 minutes later, you're in is it Lothlorien? You're in the trees of the elves, and you've got that haunting music, and the elves with their lights, and and it's just Lothlorien, and it's like, oh my god, you'll never have that experience again. They can remake that movie; they'd be insane to try, because that movie will never be remade better than it is ever. It's not possible to make that movie better. Um, but that is a once in a lifetime thing. I think Weston Beaton mentioned. So I was just going to say, I saw Jaws in the theater back when. Everybody that saw that then was changed. Yeah, the first time in Jaws, when you first got a look at the size of that shark, it was like, oh my god. So you can only do these things once, but you get to a much deeper, more interesting question here, at least to me anyway. Yes, I don't think the dinosaurs are ever going to. In fact, I know dinosaurs are never going to wow people again. What I was trying to get in that, and I couldn't get the camera angles that I wanted, but what I was trying to get with those aliens in the video was, I was trying to get that sense of something you've never seen before, where you're just looking up and it's just murk because the atmosphere is so thick, and then just these tentacles and shapes, that kind of sense of awe and wonder. I didn't ring that bell, but I didn't spend a lot of time on it either. So that's the kind of thing I'm going for. You can have that experience, you just can't have that experience with dinosaurs again. Um, but the part that I think is interesting is, makes you wonder if humanity might eventually get bored with things like AI, robots, and space travel. So let's take space travel. We've been making movies about space travel for a little bit less than a century. Um, and I think that space travel is so, the idea of exploration is so deeply rooted in many humans, that we will never lose our wonder of strange new worlds. Because if you look at like the first Flash Gordon serials, or go back further than that, go to Milieu's, and a Journey to the Moon, or whatever it was called, and their vision was, creatures kind of jumping up and down behind these flats and so on, but no one had ever seen anything like that before. We've never got we've never gotten tired of traveling through space. We never got tired of alien contact. We've never gotten tired of the technology. Every time I start working on the colonies, I kind of force myself thinking, oh, this looks really cool. There'll probably be something like this. Like, if we ever really go, it's going to look as much like what I'm doing as Flash Gordon. And in fact, one of the things that I don't like about Starship is how retro it looks. If you told me, when I've seen the new renderings they did of the lunar lander, which by the way is about this big, and the LEM is about that big, but I didn't like it. I don't like the that kind of Destination Moon kind of retro quality to the Starship. But it does go to show, well, serves you right, huh? You thought, oh, look at those Flash Gordon movies with their pointy steel rockets landing on the moon. Ha 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 ha! It's going to be a module. It's like, well, maybe not, man. Maybe not. So I don't think people ever get tired of space travel. I do think that it's time for something new. We've had 50 years, or nearly, of space combat that consists of either World War II fighters peeling off and attacking bombers with, laser cannons, peeling and banking and dogfighting, or two massive ships like galleons shooting pea shooter lasers at each other You know, please, you know, please. No one's ever done space combat the way that space combat is likely to go, which is essentially one hit, one kill kind of thing. And it's all about firing solutions and uncertainty and, you know, your ability to accurately name a weapon, select the kind of weapon for the weapon's ranges, and so on and so on. I think people have had enough of these starfighter battles, and as Star Trek continues to devolve, it gets Star Trek just becomes less and less Star Trek and more Star Wars. First, they put the Enterprise into a wormhole. The Enterprise doesn't travel through a wormhole; it travels through real space because you can see the stars moving. Or at least it travels in a warp that travels in real space. But nope, J.J. Abrams put them in a wormhole, and J.J. Abrams turned phasers from beam weapons into blasters. The Enterprise has little blasters that come up in the Kelvin timeline. Little blasters that pop up, pew, 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 because you get a machine gun effect, and J.J. thinks that looks cooler than the frickin' phasers. Phasers never look better than they did in Wrath of Khan. Those pulsated, modulated phasers, things were phenomenal. And I've been watching some of the old series, and it's like, we've got a Klingon ship. It's what's the range? 400,000 kilometers in closing. Okay, open fire. Whoosh. And now you've got Enterprise D flying through a Borg cube like the Millennium Falcon, and Data is doing it with a keyboard. It's just like, F you, really? No. It's just plain dumb. It's this, Eric points out, it's like the Jurassic World films are directly criticizing the got to keep topping it attitude. There is a way to resolve this, and they did it with James Bond, because you got to the point where with Roger Moore and stuff, the bad guy has an orbiting diamond satellite, and he's got a laser beam up there, and there are 15 different space shuttles that have, they've got like blue and red stripes, and Bond has to go to the orbiting diamond laser station. And then they just did what they should have done with Casino Royale. It's a guy with a gun in a back alley, and it's like a singer that just keeps hitting a higher and higher note. They walk out on stage and they hit the highest note they can, and then they just try and hold it for 2 hours. They just can't do it. You got to take it down, man. Got to take it down to what it really is. I thought they did a great job with Casino Royale. Take it back down. Give it room to grow. Infidel 42 says, Bill, to be fair, Wrath of Khan had the Reliant flying right over the Enterprise, like 50 feet away from crashing. Yes, Infidel, but I'll give you, but allow me to retort. The first time that the Reliant got that close to Enterprise was because it was assumed to be a friendly ship, and it was a rendezvous, and Kirk got caught with his britches down. And the second time they got so close was because they were in the Mutara Nebula, and they had no tactical, no visual, and no shields. Now, I'm not saying they've ever done it right, because they're still, but at least they're not dogfighting, right? Even in undiscovered country, they're not dogfighting. You got the cloaked Klingon ship out there, and it's, blowing holes through the Enterprise saucer, but it's not dogfighting. And I've always just thought Sulu was just the weakest character of the bunch. But I have to tell you, that one line, just that one single line, that one moment, and I timed it, it's about 3.5 seconds, where he's trying to get Excelsior to the fight in time, and he's like, "Hey, faster! We can't do it, so she'll shake apart." Well, shake her apart then. That was absolutely epic. Made up for all of the tea sipping, finger thing, made up for the sword fighting and the eye shadow mascara, all of that. Fly her apart then. That was absolutely epic. But Sulu can have Excelsior because Excelsior is a mash show. Yeah, I am a half British, but I don't drink tea like this. I drink tea in a mug, in a dirty mug. And I throw a small pinch of dirt in there just because I can. So I don't think that space will get. I don't think people will get tired of space. This is why I'm so psyched about this colony thing. Is just because it can be so many things that people had never seen before. That's why I got so bent out of shape about the space whales, because I hadn't seen the show. Ashoka, Asu. I don't care. Hadn't seen it. The space whales that fly into space and then use their own hyperdrives. But Wrath of Khan, man, that was a fine piece of work. That's just a great movie. It's not just a great Star Trek movie. It's just a great, great movie. It's without question peak Star Trek. I don't like the Excelsior class Deef. I think it's ugly and ungainly, and that thick kind of rubbery looking neck it has, and the square, fairings for the nacelles, and it's not as ugly as the Enterprise D. I give it that, but it's just kind of boxy. I did see some designs that I liked a lot in. I guess it's in Strange New Worlds. They had some cool looking traditional saucer with traditional nacelles. A couple of cool designs on that. I thought they were really, really cool. As a matter of fact, I'd include those in my Star Trek universe. But yeah, Undiscovered Country was a good attempt, valiant attempt. But it wasn't Khan. It was. There's one moment in Khan. And I got to assume that it might have been an accident. And if you know the movie as well as I do, you know what it is. So Khan's in the Reliant. He's got his crew of ragtag Superman misfits, all of whom are dressed like hippies in tatters with headbands and stuff. And there's a guy who's leaning on the railing behind Khan in the command chair. And the Reliant takes a hit and this guy reaches out and he braces himself against Khan's shoulder. And Khan turns back to look at him. And the guy's like, oh, jeez, he's gonna snap my neck. It was a nice little moment. Yeah. Since this is our Monday show, just let me say one thing. Sorry, Westy Bean says, I mentioned it before. My friend's cousin played Scotty's son in Wrath. You mean his nephew? Went and saw it in a theater. He got killed off, of course. I think it was his nephew. Scotty is my, oh boy. I mean, Kirk's my favorite character. I think McCoy and Spock are tied for second, but Scotty's right up there, man. Scotty's just freaking awesome. I love him. But I've seen 2 or 3 episodes now of the old show where Scotty is a complete simp when it comes to women, But Captain, we've got to save her. He's just well, he's an engineer. He's worthless. He knows he's no good at it. But in Who Mourns for Adonis and Wolf in the Fold, and a couple of other episodes where there's some pretty girl that Scotty's kind of interested in, and he's trying to give her the tour of engineering and stuff. It's beneath him. It's beneath him. He should just stay there and wait for an engineering geek like the girl from Firefly to come along. It's a great film. It's coming through now, Con. Air Techie says he's an engineer. What is he supposed to do? Yeah, really. They really got a great point there. Anyway. So I think there's going to be. I don't think people are going to get tired of space travel, especially if you show them something new, and I mean to show them something new. I've been toying again with the idea of eliminating the Stargates. I just don't think I can make it work. I'm depending on the holes that are showing up in relativity. I'm betting the farm on quantum because the gates are cool. All right, here we go. Capital G Geek old account. Greetings from swamps of Northern Virginia. Milo is back. He's on X at Nero. He's no longer gay. He has become a Christian. He's still just as catty as ever. You mentioned that your vet bills had drastically increased over the last years, and I have the possible reason. Private equity has been purchasing a lot of small companies, should be plumbing, I guess, HVAC, electrician, veterinarians. They will frequently purchase the company with the company's own credit, not having to hand over any cash at all. They will leave the names and the staff the same and move all of the common functions like HR, billing, etc. to their holding company. It started during COVID as a way for them to invest stable home service industries. They've been raising prices and trading their reputations for cash flow to the point that it's time for small operators to start opening new businesses again, except they can't as regulations make the startup costs very high. This is the danger to capitalism, dude. This is how capitalism dies, is through this kind of thing, because it's done it to healthcare, and Natasha can't handle it. Amen to that, by the way. Deep 6844 says, look, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but my favorite character in Star Wars by far is Wedge Antilles. And Wedge Antilles is related to somebody famous. He's somebody's uncle, or the actor is somebody. I heard somebody interviewed and blah blah blah, and said, "Yeah, my uncle's a guy plays Wedge Antilles. Wedge is the best pilot in Star Wars." Is right. He's destroyed 2 Death Stars and a bunch of other stuff. I'd like to know who it was who was related to the actor who plays Wedge Antilles. But I love Wedge. He's great, and he's cool looking, man. And he doesn't. Is it Ewan? It's Ewan McGregor. Yeah, he's McGregor's uncle. How about that? Well, he's got a perfect American accent. That's right. McGregor was telling the story of the first time he saw Star Wars. He saw the movie, and his uncle was playing Wedge, and yeah, that's just really cool. I love Ewan McGregor. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. I just love the guy. I love everything he's in. He was in Christopher Robin. That was a fantastic film. A fantastic film. Dave Big Boutte says Wedge Antilles is the John Young of the Star Trek universe. You just won the internet, Dave. Absolutely. So back to Capital G Geek. If these big companies buy out these little companies, suck the money out of them in exchange for their reputation, and then just leave the husks, this is the kind of thing that I don't know the solution to, but this is what destroys the free market and makes people insane. They've done it to healthcare for humans. And it's unconscionable. Natasha had a very close friend who was a vodka critic, and he had a newspaper, and he ranked vodkas. And they drink a lot of vodka in Russia. So he had a big following. He would talk about how when a company that was making vodka for 200 years, 300 years, and some gangsters, would come along and just basically say, we're going to give you this for the company. You can take the lead or you can take the gold. So they would just buy the company out, and they'd start using the lowest cost ingredients. And it took about 2 years to completely destroy the brand, for them to suck the money out of what they were making, but it cost them this to make this, and then they just cut the expenses so that they're making tons of profit until the sales go down and drop to zero. So they basically went in there and just sucked the hell out of this company, and then they go and ruin some other company. They're gangsters. They're criminals. The problem is, it's that pesky free will again, right? I mean, there's like, it's very difficult to resist that kind of paycheck. I will tell you this, though. If I can spin this colonies up, if I can bootstrap this thing up, there is no amount of money that they can pay me. No amount of money that they can pay me for 51% share or greater. I'm gonna pass it on to a small cadre of true believers with the legal understanding that these are the core tenets, and you can't break them or else you're out. I just I will not let that happen. He goes on to say, private equity also killed Joann's craft stores, which were great. I didn't go there, but Natasha went all the time. Party City, which was great. Forever 21, Big Lots, and Red Lobster. Dollar Tree purchased Family Dollars for $9 billion in 2015, selling it now for $1 billion. Private equity-backed floating rate loans, $3.8 trillion adjustable rate loans, with banks repackaging as CLOs and sold to pension funds. And Tiffany Cianci has a lot more to link, which I'm not going to check right now, but you get the idea. Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal. Pass it on to Eric Blake, says Dave Big Booty. He'd probably be my first choice. In fact, I'm virtually positive he'd be my first choice. Okay, Roadrunner. Subject, Troll in Chief. Hang on. We still got 4 to do. If you are in mockery with the best way to fight the insanity of the Democrats, progressives, and mainstream media, then President Trump and his administration are masters of the game. Yes, they are. The White House, after posting highlights on his website showing such things as Monica Lewinsky and Hunter Biden's crack stash, that was a masterpiece, being found, has recently started a new section called My Safe Space, where they mercilessly mock Hakeem Jeffries and by association Chuck Schumer, who they actually care about and support, all with sombreros as the background music and mariachi music playing loudly. This really gets to them. This bothers them like crazy. If I was Hakeem Jeffries after Trump did this to me, I swear to God is my witness. If Trump did that to me, I would come out to the next press conference and I'd be wearing the biggest frickin' sombrero. I would have a gag sombrero made, and I'd have a twirly mustache out to here. And I wouldn't speak with an accent. I wouldn't change what I was going to say. I would just come out and deliver the exact same speech I would have delivered otherwise, but I just would have owned it. That's the only way you get by with it. I would have owned it. That's the only way to fight these people. I think that would have been exactly the thing to do. Let's see about my safe space. Oh my God, it looks like a MySpace entry. It gives me PTSD looking at this. It's brilliant. My Safe Space, a place for Dems. Hakeem's 8 top friends: Joe Biden, Fenty Girl, Antifa, Soros, Chucky, Real Chucky, Maryland Dad, and Tampon Tim. Frickin' brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Have truth bombs, store mechanics, and the rest been put on hold while you work on the colonies? Inquiring minds want to know. Yes, largely the colonies, and I've got one other outside job that I just about wrapped up. I should be finished with tomorrow. I am trying to... I'm waiting to hear from this guy. As I say, he often plays with his food, toys around a little bit. But one way or another, I don't think it'll be too much longer before I hear from him, and then I'll be able to, commit. But I'm just wrapping up an outside job doing photorealistic flashbacks. There's an documentary interview. And people are talking about things that they did. And I'm taking their faces from the interview and I'm recreating the scenes in AI, and it looks like we just went out and shot them on film. It's amazing. So that's kind of cool. Eric Blake, tonight of the conspiracy question. Okay, Bill, I'll get to the point on this one. What are your current plans for truth bombs? How close are we seeing the first episode? I ask here because you haven't mentioned it in a while amid your continuing to constantly debate with YouTube conspiracy theorists about the exact subjects you plan to tackle with the series. Bill, I speak for the rest of us when I say, for the sake of your well-being and ours, please start to take all that energy to use instead for actual truth bomb episodes about 9/11, the moon landing, chemtrails, etc. When you get into those long and ending discussions, the longer it goes, the more aggravated you get and the harder it is to keep on watching. So I implore you, Bill, this is one of the most important projects you've ever committed to. You said last week that this conspiratorial attitude is an increasing problem on our side, so we need to develop the medicine ASAP. In the meantime, next time some YouTuber says the same old talking points you've debunked a million times, just tell them you're going to address it in the Truth Bombs episode. Frankly, I should help incentivize you to follow through. P.S. Your space whales don't suck. My point thus stands. The allegedly perfect is the enemy of the actually good. That especially applies to the truth bombs. Well, I couldn't agree more with either of you guys. I kind of need an answer on the colonies pitch, but that is not going to hang in the air forever. But yes, so I'd expect we could start on it beginning of next week. But yeah, no objection and no rebuttal and no argument. You're absolutely right. Braden Higby, howdy from Idaho. I love Idaho, hooray. The death of the penny got me thinking about how our society progresses by obfuscation. We went from coins that were worth the metal they were minted out of. By the way, that's the definition of a coin. A coin is a piece of metal that is worth what the metal is worth. What we have are technically tokens. A U.S. quarter is not a coin anymore. It's a token. We went from coins that were worth the metal they were minted out of to sheets of paper that could be traded for that metal to trust me bro fiat paper to numbers in a bank account, and now we're exploring blockchain and cryptocurrencies, which seems to me to be another level of obfuscation. I would disagree about the crypto because it appears that it is much, much more difficult to copy a Bitcoin than it is to copy or fiat into existence a dollar. Asian Hen Lincoln says, you got a good handle on the AI media generation. Any tutorials on what you know like to know for beginners? No, I might put one together. I'm not going to spend extra time on it, but I might just turn on the recorder while I'm doing it and record the screen so you can see. But yeah, I'm definitely getting the hang of it. I think similar arguments can be made for just about every aspect of society, from interaction to politics. Even manufacturing, with the increasing specialization of trades, the use of automation, and the offshoring of factories, has been pushed further and further from people's day-to-day lives. I don't point these things out to say that they're evil or demand a return to silver coins. The obfuscation provides tremendous advantages. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to have made the switch in the first place. Do you think the rise in American strain of socialism in the culture is made easier by the obscuring of reality of people's existence from them? How do you combat the downsides of this obfuscation in a culture? I think the only way that this is going to happen is for the currency to collapse and for us to go back to something that cannot be fiated. Gold standard, there's an argument to be made that the economy was growing faster than the gold supply, and I understand that in basic terms. But it has to be something, and Bitcoin seems to be the closest that we have to it. I'm fascinated with this idea of Bitcoin mining, by the way. It's just apparently just raw computing power, right? You're just trying to crack a really, really difficult code, right? Here's a super chat for $20 from Gabbingval2. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on Wexit. I'm interested in hearing them too. I don't know what Wexit is. So somebody tell me, and I may not know anything about it, but you'll get a free opinion anyway. By the way, have you seen the U.S. Mint's 250th anniversary coins that will be come out next year? The new Mercury dime is my favorite. I have not seen it. Also, I'm Atomic Conqueror on YouTube. After Charlie Kirk, it felt appropriate to use my name in this esteemed form. Yeah, Atomic Conqueror is freaking awesome. Wexit is Western Canada leaving Canada. I think they should go, man. Canada is falling apart. Did you see this thing that the commander of the Canadian Armed Forces, this is their chief soldier, it's a woman, liberal white woman with short hair, who was apologizing for all of the injustices that the Canadian Armed Forces have inflicted upon gays over the past, and she started crying, which is guaranteed to keep the Chinese at bay. Nothing like having a head of your military being a crying liberal woman, crying about injustices that were done to gay people in centuries past. That's That's the kind of defensive posture that'll keep your culture going a long, long time. It is just astonishing to me how much liberals hate this country and hate Western civilization. Just absolutely hate them. Got him. Coach said Dodgers beat Canada in Game 7 of the World Series. That was a great series, man. And I didn't get to watch it live, but that last game was... I felt sorry for Toronto because they kind of needed it, but then at the same time I kind of thought, well, you know, I like the Dodgers. It's one of the few things I actually go to occasionally, and I've always liked the Dodgers and USA. Yes, I think they ought to leave, and I think they ought to leave as soon as possible. That doesn't mean they become states. They can become their own country. They can become Western Canada. They want to become states. I think that'd be absolutely awesome. You know, we haven't added any states to the nation in 66 years. Do you know that? Last time that we added states to this country, it's got to be the longest period, I would imagine. It certainly must be the longest period. Last time we added states to the United States of America, I was 0 years old. Roadrunner says the Babylon Bee had an article saying that the Canadian government was having the Blue Jays euthanized. I'd love to see a greater Idaho. I'd like to see an Eastern California or Northern California. I want Greenland. Me too, Rockin. I want it. I want Greenland. Hawaii and Alaska, same year. I wonder what a 51 star flag would look like. That'd be kind of ugly. I can't think how you would do 51. I could think of, I'm sure there's a 52. I don't know. I do like the fact that SpaceX is talking about the moon. I wish he would just go to the moon first, but he's got, Mars. He's got Mars fever. I've never understood Mars fever, but it's not my company and it's not my rockets. Bill, did you see Canada playing propaganda fake Ronald Reagan videos trashing Trump's tariffs during the World Series? No. Sounds like something a loser country would do, though. It's Eastern Canada, says Deep, Ontario, Quebec, that abandon Canadian values. If we in the West leave, we should be able to keep our name. Let Eastern Canada change their name and anthem. Absolutely right. Well done. I think you're right. They should call themselves... no, they shouldn't call themselves what first thing that flew into my mind. Because the first thing that flew into my mind was the English word for cigaretteville. All right, I got a Road Rider, and this is the last one. Lisa from the Colonies is really, really pretty. In fact, every Sora or Grok image video or image I see created, the women are beautiful. Serious as a Fetterman stroke here, but the question, will there be any homely women or kind of ugly guys on your colonies? I agree. Even I know there's more to this, like Ernest Borgnine. I told him ordinary-looking, plain-looking working men, and it gave me guys that look really studly. Now, people are getting better looking. There's no question about that. But back to the question. All the Earth women in your clips were off the charts beautiful. Will the colonies have the same normals or fuglies to keep it real? Can AI even make images like the spawn of Whoopi Goldman and a very old Hulk Hogan? Really want to see more of what you can come up with as a must-see storyline for the colonies trailer soon? Yes, I hope so. And you know what? Let me let's just do a quick little test because this will be very, very quick. Ugly is being bred out in a lot less than 250 years, man. You look at pictures from like the 1940s, so 80 years ago, and those people look like they look like our grandpappies. Hang on. Just trying to find a place here. Come on, Billy, you can do it. Okay, here we go. Here's the prompt I used for that got us all those good-looking people, and here's the prompt: photorealistic eye-level image of a regular-looking man and woman wearing foreign weighted faded sci-fi clothes, and here's all the rest of it. So now I'm going to go and change it from regular-looking image of I'm just going to say ugly looking man and woman wearing torn sci-fi clothes. Let's see what we get. I didn't want them pretty. I didn't think they looked too pretty, but actually on balance they all looked really good. You know, they had mutt genes. They all looked like they had plenty of interbreeding and see, that's unbelievable. It's really. I'll just show you the first picture. Now one guy's got like a skin disease, but look this is amazing. Here you go. Photorealistic eye-level image of ugly-looking man and woman wearing worn sci-fi cold weather outfits. Here's ugly. Brace yourselves, guys. It's going to hurt your eyes. It's really going to be rough. Really going to be rough. Here's Midjourney's version of ugly. Hang on, YouTube. Ooh, pretty scary. Look how hideous they are. Okay, what can I do about that? Yeah, they're horrifying. Let's say extremely ugly. Men looking women, blah, blah, blah. They have asymmetrical faces and are over and under weight. Dramatically over and underweight. Submitted. Here come the monsters. Hang on, everybody. Okay. Here's here you go. That's different. Hang on there, Twitch. Tempted to do something with them actually. I did one guy who was really, like really gross. Yeah, give me 1 second because this is fun. Hang on. This doesn't work. I don't know what to do. All right, let's see what we get here. Yeah, this is getting a little closer. But now it just looks like a cartoon. It's just rendering out here. Yeah, they don't even look real. So you can't even really count these. There's got to be. I'll try one more just for fun. Come back here. There's got to be some kind of middle ground. What's my stylization at? Hang on a minute. Yeah, I'm a little too stylized. Let me take him down some. Yeah, Dave Bowman is aghast. This guy looks like something from Love, Death, and Robots. None of these look real to me. I think when you go that far, I think Midjourney starts looking at like cartoons or something. Last try. Okay, this one is on the, I don't know. This is as close to real as I've seen, but it's still a reach, man. Could probably buy that guy. Ah, I have an idea. I'll go back to the prompt I used that generated all the good-looking colonists, the regular-looking people. I'll go back to that prompt. I'll just take that, and instead of changing the prompt, I won't change the prompt at all. I'll just add a reference. Hang on a second. This will do it. This'll throw us right off. Here we go. Here it comes. It's coming through now, Con. Okay, you tell me. You tell me what I did to get this. Who I added to make this image. I just went with my first impulse. That is an ugly colonist. Nope, it's not Mr. Potato Head. Yes! It's Brian Stelter, ladies and gentlemen. Brian Stelter, the new chief administrator of the water department of the sewage and refuge treating plant on SETI Alpha 5. Terrifying, isn't it? Just terrifying. There's no saving it. He's just stuck. He's just stuck being Brian Stelter. Yes, she is too hot for him. Everybody's too hot for him. That guy it's his smile. It's this. That's just. Oh, I had two cool ideas about the colonies. I'll tell you about them real quick because we're about done with the questions. About to sign off. If I give Midjourney a longer leash and loosen up the restrictions on it, it's generating some interesting stelteroids. Oh dear God, they look like Vogons. Honest to God, I didn't change. Okay, here you go. Hang on. Yeah, this is it. I'm not doing it anymore. But I will tell you one thing. He does bear a resemblance to Shrek, I've noticed. Whoops. Yeah, I had spent a lot of time on getting that Lisa right. Do I still have it? I think my favorite rendering of her is her just sipping a cup of coffee. Put that. See if I've got. If I can't find it right away, I won't waste any more time. Nope. Oh well, it's okay. I did have some thoughts, though. Let me just turn these sounds off. And turn these things off. So, yeah, just real quick. Okay. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I was just thinking of little pieces of Chrome and stuff. So I got two little thoughts about the homesteader thing on the colonies thing, since it's Monday night, and we'll wrap it up with a little storytelling. One of them is here's a nice one. I think it'd be interesting if it, so that these guys are all going to live some distance away from a, a kind of a frontier town. It's not the biggest town on this planet. The biggest town on this planet is not really a giant big town, but they're out in the sticks. So they probably got, this town probably has a, population of, maybe 700, and at any given time 5,000 people may come in from the surrounding neighborhoods to the civic center or whatever. And I thought it'd be cool to say, to have Lisa say something to the effect of, "Come on, we got to go with it. There, it's Lord of the Rings tonight at at the Civic Center." So they get in their rover, and they go to see Lord of the Rings. And then there's an auditorium full of 2,000 people, and what it is there's 4 or 5 people down on stage with microphones, and they're reading Lord of the Rings. And they're reading them with really good accents, and each one of them is playing different characters. And there's like some practical stage things going on, like maybe the guy playing Gollum, is like he's on like a pulley, and he goes, "Oh, my precious," and then they, crank him up, and he's hanging there, and he's waving and floating, and they do some kind of like spiral thing like that. But the whole thing is done live. It's all a pantomime. It's all done with people talking. That sense of community to me is really, really, really the whole point of this whole homesteader thing. I just thought that'd be a really cool twist. I thought it would say a lot about who these people are, that they would go in, every week and just hear. Just to hear it, just to have the sense of community. And then I had another thought, and this thought is that they would have that this little town would have every year, they'd have a new Citizen of the Year award, and this would be after they've been there for a while, obviously. So they all go to these functions at this thing because there's nothing else to do, right? So everybody goes to, anytime there's anything there, they this is where they go. So so they ask Lisa if she can play a piano piece to introduce the Citizen of the Year thing. She goes, "Yeah, sure, okay. I've got a couple things I can use, something classic." Yeah. So they get there, and there's a big event. She's wearing the black dress, and then they're about to announce the Citizen of the Year award, and they sit her down at this electronic keyboard, and she starts to play, and there's like a dead key on the keyboard, and she's trying to get through it. She says, "I'm so sorry, it's just a dead key here," and it's a key that she needs a lot of, And somebody comes out, and testing it and so on. It's, "Oh, looks like it's broken." And she says, "Whatever will we do? We're gonna have to find some sort of alternative." She's playing in front of a red curtain, and they raise the curtain, and behind the curtain is a black Steinway grand piano, and Lisa is the Citizen of the Year, because of how much bringing the music has meant, and so. And so she says, "Oh my God, this is for me." And they say, "Technically, it's the Lisa Barrett piano, but yes, it's yours, but it stays here. Congratulations." And she says, "My God, now I've really got to work hard to find somebody good enough to play this." I just thought it was a cool touch, and a real endearing touch, because she's the MVP in terms of morale. This ability to get people to play, because think about, and she says, "What did it cost to get this thing out here?" Well, it cost a lot. I won't lie to you, it cost a lot. It costs a lot to ship an actual piano all the way out there. Up off of Earth orbit, through the stargates, whatever. And then down there and all of it. It's yeah. Copy Shonada says priceless antique. It's made in 2109. Exactly. So she's like completely blown away by this, and that's just a neat little piece of chrome. And then on the Save Will front, I had an interesting thought about this. I had a real interesting thought about this. I think it's something that well, first of all, I haven't decided if I'm going to do it or not, but if I do, so if it turns out that Will dies and they bring him back to the house and she's just absolutely destroyed, right? I mean, she's just completely demolished, and Jake is like Mr. Tough Guy, and he's just lost his marbles, and everybody's, and there's not like you can just call the funeral home, so they kind of put him in his bedroom and stuff, and then they have the burial, and the timing has to be right, and this has got to be really finessed the way this is written, really finessed. But some point afterwards, she says to Jake, she says, I want to reconstitute him. And he says, honey, we're not doing that. She says, yes, we are. And he says, no, baby, it's, first of all, it's against the law. She goes, there's a guy on this planet, it's on the other side of the planet, who has done it before, and he can do it again. And we're going to do it. And he says, no, baby, we're not going to do it. He says the worst thing, it's the worst thing that you could do to yourself, and it's the worst thing you could do to him. Reconstituting him means cloning him. It's just real simple. It's not like a magic procedure. She drew some blood from him, kept it frozen, and right after she died, and she wants to clone him. And then this brings up some really, really interesting points. And Jake is saying, honey, it's not going to be him. It's going to look like him, but he's not going to be raised. It's not going to be Will. He's going to be a kid who looks like Will. He wasn't raised the same way. He wasn't raised on Earth. We were much younger. All of this, he's going to be completely different. And you're going to look at him and you're going to think it's our boy, and it's not our boy. And you're not going to get what you want, and you're not going to be fair to him. Blah, blah, blah. It just back and forth, and she's just determined to do it. And then he says, and listen, what about the kid? Coffee Shonada beat me to it, right? What about Will too? What do we say to him when he gets old enough and sees pictures of himself as a child from 12 years ago? What do we say? That we made you, that you're not you're not a unique person. That's why they made these things against law, because of the psychological damage. You're not a unique person. You're a copy of somebody. How do you think that's going to affect him to know that he represents somebody that we loved, and we love that person so much we decided to make a copy of him, and you're the copy. So step up. I just think that's a freaking really interesting way of looking at it, because I don't see any way that he would come out the same. It would be interesting to explore ways that that he would be different, and he may not seem as good at first, because Will is he's Will frickin' Robinson. It's ethically interesting to me. Mercy says, wasn't this the plot of the movie AI? They put the son in the robot's body with his memories. I don't remember that they put his memories in there. I thought they just got a generic boy. But I've often wondered about how you would react if you were a clone. You know, if you weren't unique, how would you react if you were a clone? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't make any difference at all. Um, I know there's in there aren't there pet cloning services out there? It's not cheap, obviously. And even a pet, you wouldn't get the same pet back. You'd get a pet that looked like your pet, but it wouldn't be the same pet. Um, and with a human, it'd be that times a thousand. Interesting thought, though. Um, Something to think about. Ask an identical twin. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Airteki says there's a precedence. People have been named after dead older siblings before. That's true. That's absolutely true. But you were not the same. It's one thing to have the person's name and another to be like a identical copy of them. It'd be interesting to explore whether this, what their reaction would be, because Will is like this golden child, and I don't see any way that either him or a new sibling could live up to him. There's just sometimes you find out kids like this. My nephew Ashton was like that. Actually, he's just this golden kid. Um, Will too would be a younger twin. Well, maybe. I don't have any twins, obviously. Um, I've always been fascinated by twins, and I don't know. I don't know. Airteki says, but they were expected to fulfill that dead sibling's role. Yeah, it's true. Anyway, I'm not going to make any commitment to it. It's a lot to think about. Um, you play life differently if you have save points. Anyway, it's a thought. Okay, we're done here with the questions, and expect I'll have some answers by this time next week. Chase Smith says, my dad was an identical twin, so if I had a DNA test done, if I had a question about who my father was, it would show one of two possibilities. That's actually amazing. Marisha says, technically Star Trek transporters are cloning death machines. Exactly right. No one ever talks about that, but James T. Kirk goes down to the planet, gets his head shot off. They just reconstitute Kirk from the transporter pattern, and he loses 2 hours of history that he wouldn't have had otherwise, like a website going down. Anyway, something to think about for next time. Is child death a big part of this frontier living? It is. I'm not married to it. I'm really not. I'm thinking it over. There's pros and cons. But I'll tell you one thing I won't do, and that is I will not do the cop out where you kill him and then he's brought back by some amazing thing that these aliens can do, or this or that. It's like, no, people die and they die. So there's that. I may find somebody else who's very, very lovable to kill, just outside the family. Maybe Claire's boyfriend or something. Not the same, though, really. All right, well, we'll figure it out. Anyway, the show's made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com who keep everything going here, as you know. And we're very grateful for the support, obviously, as always. We'll be here on Thursday. And I guess we will see you then. So let's just check out of YouTube. Thanks for joining with us, YouTube. It's great having everybody here. And we'll see you Thursday for your Stress Free Lounge. Hooray.